Yes, rather nice. New cider for you all. Not my usual tipple of Thatchers, but watching the pennies at the moment, and Lidl cider, surprisingly alright. Normally go for the 4-pack of Scrumpy from Woodgate, about £2.69 a 4-pack I think it is. But thought I'd try the vintage just because it's a bit stronger, 7.3%, and that's rather sweet for a vintage if you're going by the Henry Westons or the Thatcher's vintage, a bit more drier. Oh shit, this is a fishing channel, isn't it? Anyway, you join me on the banks of my Syndicate. Name will stay elusive, so if you know the place, keep it to yourself, just out of courtesy of the other members on here. But I've not done any filming really on here before, and that's mainly because it's a tough water. And I thought it just was going to get boring. This is my second, maybe, I think it's my second full season on here. But I've also done a few guest sessions before then. So I've been on this lake on and off for about 2-3 years now. And it's now, obviously, we're post lockdown for fishing. So I've been on here since it reopened really. Well, actually a bit after that, because this place, Sod's Law, as a lot of places, spawned right around the time that fishing was starting to get relaxed. And as a rule on here, once they've spawned, give them another month to fully recover, no angling pressure. So actually it was quite a lot later than when everyone else was able to get back on the bank, probably 3 or 4 weeks later. I think it was about a month. But I got back on here, and first session back, I think it was my first session back, I was fishing on the other side of the lake, peg 4, and I managed 2 fish, I think it was. So the first bite came in, no it wasn't, I tell a lie, my first session back, I lost a fish. So I was fishing to the pads, and fishing nice and locked up. I just come back from a session fishing locked up the pads. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. It's my previous video, which is at Beerley Lakes, and fished really fine there, enjoyed it, fishing tight to pads. Went through my methods of fishing locked up with pegs in front of your reels or on the reel handlers, keeping everything locked down tight so you don't give them an inch. Doing exactly the same method. But this fish, few beeps, I was in, picked up the rod, and as soon as I picked up the rod, it done me. So lead had discharged, tubing back, it was definitely a take and everything, but it just gone straight in the pads, and it didn't hook into the pads or anything, just simply came off. So I must have either just nicked it or I didn't hook it properly, and that fishing locked up just pulled the hook straight back out of its mouth. So gutting first start back to the season, but nevertheless it was a change of tactics and something that works. So in the past on here I've been quite well, I've overthought things. As with any lake, if you start to blank a lot, it's a massive mind battle, and trying to think, what am I doing right, what am I doing wrong, why aren't I catching, especially when people around you are catching what seemingly at will. They'd rock up, do a night, have 1 or 2, go home, and I'm there for 2-3 nights, rack my brains, not even getting a beep. So I went back to basics. With my job I get to see a lot of different anglers and how they fish, and it's become very apparent that so many of them fish really simply. So I've stripped back to real basics, lead clip setup. I was using helicopters, and I've gone to simple coated braided hook links, a little bit stripped before the hook, and fishing either bottom baits or wafters. I've found that I haven't really been getting any bites on pop-ups. So stripped everything back, and unfortunately lost one on the first session. But the following week I was back up here again, went back in exactly the same swim, did exactly the same approach, fishing 2 rods this time to the island and 1 on the pads. Pads rod did absolutely nothing, but the island kicked off. Well, I say kicked off well for me on here, because first take came about 4 PM I think it was, and it was a lovely fish. I think that one was 33 something. I should remember the pounds and ounces. I should have checked all this before I put the camera on. But yeah, absolutely amazing. My second 30 out of here. So rewind back to just before lockdown, my very last session on here. I'd just done a session at Coking Farm with solid bag fishing for carpology. Never used it before, but absolutely had it off on Coking Farm Long Lake. So it gave me a lot of confidence with using that setup and technique. So I thought I'll bring it here. Tried it, and something weird happened before I had the fish, so I had to recast the rod in the dark to where I think I was fishing, and just on the head torch I saw it went right under the tree in peg 9, so the opposite to where I am right now, went straight under a tree, and I thought I wouldn't have even been able to do that in the day. Anyway, put the rod down, and I think it's about 2 AM, rod went off, and a 30 pounder, so that was, I get mixed up with my weights, but I think that was about 32, 33. And so, filled with confidence, finally caught a fish on here, and then lockdown struck. So no fishing for ages. Fast forward to back on here, so I've lost one on my first session back, second session, I've had a bite, and I've had another low to mid 30. Absolutely beautiful fish, one that had come out only the week previous by one of the other members, a few ounces lower. So clearly on the feed. They've not been on any angling pressure for months, so they're clearly getting on the feed, and that one to come out twice in a space of just over a week was precedent or proof of that fact. So had one, absolutely made up. Rod went back out, just before dark, rod went off again. This time the left-hand rod, which was off the bait spot on the island, and that one was just shy of 26 pounds. So absolutely made up with that. 2 sessions in, I've had 3 bites, landed 2, smallest being just shy of 26 pounds. So confidence is now brimmed. I'm using the same tactics on today's session as well. But we fast forward to the next session, fish the same swim again. I mean, why change swim when I'm catching and my approach is working in there? So same setup, rods out. I've wrapped up by this point, so I know exactly where my spots are, pinging them out, getting them perfect each time. Went out in the boat previous and put some bait in, so I was happy, settled up. Almost exact same timings as the previous session, a week previous. 4 o'clock, so between 3:30 and 4 is when I had the bite the week previous. 4 o'clock, left rod went off. Into it, playing it for about a few seconds, and just went solid. Now, the islands, when you go out to them in the boat, where I'm fishing is right tight to the reeds, but you've probably got a good 6, 7, 8 foot where the reeds start to where the actual island is. And this fish, unfortunately, even on a tight line, just the stretch in the mono, and managed to get round those reed stems and ditched me in a reed. I don't know how they do it, but they do. It's happened to me several times on here, and it's kind of the risk and reward sort of balance on here, because if I wasn't fishing that close, would I have got the bite? But having fished that close, I got the bite, but they were able to get in the reeds straight away. So really gutted about that. And I went out in the boat and everything, and then it's the gut-wrenching feeling when I got to my rig and just saw it was embedded in a stem. But it was another bite, so I came back, rod back out, and just before dark, so exactly the same timings as the previous week, the other rod went off, which was on the island as well. This time I played it for a good 20, 30 seconds. It powered under the tree, and even at the range I was fishing, I could feel this was a heavy fish. And thinking about it now, I'm still gutted, because unfortunately this one came off as well. It blasted along the island, probably went about 30 yards from where I hooked it, and still managed to just on a tight line, not giving it anything, giving it as hard as I could, went behind another reed. Same scenario again, went out in the boat and found my rig ditched in a reed stem. So 2 on the bounce lost, absolutely gutted. So I racked my brains, and this time the hook had actually bent out, so I was a bit gutted about that. And I started thinking about the rig I've been using on multiple places, and I wasn't happy with the catch or take to land ratio with the rig. So a change was in order, so I changed over to a different hook pattern, moved over to a sort of a curve shank this time, and it's a rig I've used before with the same hook, and remember how well it turned. So I changed over the hook pattern, palm test, almost without barely moving it, it was flipping, digging in. So I was dead happy with how it was presenting. Virtually the same, identical rig, just different hook. Rod went back out, and I think it was in the night, so middle of the night, one of those rods went off that I recast, and I managed to get this one in. It was just around the 21 pound mark, I think it was. Don't hold me to that. I think it was about 21, and did some night shots of that, so no footage, but again, so a little change, and it worked. And then I went back to work, and I couldn't get back on it until today's session. So I've now rocked up in peg 1, not where I would have gone. Obviously I would have gone straight back to where I've been getting the bites, but a lot of the fish have been getting caught from that side of the lake. Everyone's aware of this, so there's a couple of people fishing that side. I didn't want to slot in between them and be one of those guys. It's quite a small lake here, there's only 9 swims, 20 members, so I thought I'll take myself complete other end of the lake where no one was. A couple of people were in there last night. I don't think they had anything, but I'm here for 48 hours. So, first rod, right rod, went over to the road bank, and I'm fishing that one on a washing line setup. Now, I've used that a couple of times on here before, and I've had fish on it. It's just, for anyone that's ever used it, it's effective, but it can take a long time to set up, especially here with the overgrown trees. I've got the waders on and wade through the reeds to get it all sorted. It's not as simple as casting to a bank on the other side with no overgrowth or anything. So that one sorted. Took about 3/4 of an hour to get that one done, sorted. I'm happy with it, and if anything, I'm most confident on that because there's no line in the water. Any fish that moves around from the island and comes across here, they're not going to come into contact with any kind of line until they get to that baited spot in the margin. And where my rig is, obviously it's slackened off from where it's attached to a tree over there. So there's barely any line in the water. And it's sort of slowed up a bit the last few days, the last week or so. There's a few fish been coming out still around there. But on the whole, it's not fishing as well as it has been, so the fish seem to be wising up a bit. So I'm hoping that plays in my favour. It's quite busy again today. There's 5 anglers on now, 2 directly opposite me, 2 on the other side of the bank. But where I am in this swim, you've got a lot of water. You've got an aerator dividing the lake on this side, so there's no one can fish in this area of the lake from the other side. So I'm fishing one right tight to the island, basically the other side of where I've been catching fish in the other swim. And then the right hand rod is just fishing between the lilies and the island to the right of the lilies behind me, because a fish showed there earlier. No bait around that one, but there's bait on the other 2, and that is me set for the next 48 hours. I'll probably do a recast tomorrow if nothing happens. That's pretty much it. Now, this video may not be as slick as other videos because it's not going to be as action-packed, but I thought I'd do a little update, mainly because I'm not uploading much, and my missus was saying, you need to put some content out there. Why not film at your Syndicate? So I am doing that. I'm not going to talk about it too much or film loads of things, but I think every now and then I'll do an update from this lake on how I'm getting on. And if I have anything on this session, of course I'll film it and fill you in. But it's not going to be the sort of place that I blog every single time I come, because I think you'll get bored stiff of probably a lot of blanks and a lot of not a lot happening. So fingers crossed for this session. Cheers for watching if I don't catch anything, but hopefully in the next 40 hours we'll get something on the bank live for the camera. Whew, that was a lot of waffling. I'm going to rest you there on the bivvy top because I haven't got anything else set up. And I will give you some raw emotion because I wasn't going to film this session, but the washing line rig has just gone off. It's just gone midnight, and I'm pretty sure I've got what's known as terries in the net, and this is usually over £40. If it is, it's smashed my PB by a good £5 or more because my biggest fish so far. No, it's not. My biggest fish is in France, which is 39.15, so just shy of £40. But biggest UK fish is 35.12, I believe. Either way, this looks like a PB to me. So let's just show you if I can hold this with one hand. There she is. Or he is, I'm not sure. Oh, what a donkey. I've got to attempt to lift this fish now. Oh, gave me such a fight. And it looks like he's going to try and beat me up, getting him out of the lake as well. Oh. Certainly chunky. Whether it would do the 40 mark, I'm not sure. Absolutely nailed in the corner of the mouth. That was never coming off. Scopic squid cultured. Doing the business. And the video lights has gone off. Brilliant. Right, hook is out. Oh. Oh. It's not as big as I thought. Maybe it's not Terry's. I have overbigged this up majorly. Well, it's a 30. £30, 4 ounces. I was way off, but I'm still elated. That's my biggest common from the UK. So it's still a PB. Happy days. Well, there we go. So you would have saw the elation on camera, and still very, very happy, but I was probably 10 or 15 pound out because this isn't the fish I thought it could have been, but it's still a UK PB common at £30 and 6 ounces. Very distinctive lack of scales, or like a smudge where they've obviously healed. But happy days. That's the washing line rig paid off. I called the owner, who I just don't think I woke you up, did I? No. Wherever you are behind the light, but yeah. Have to get some good snaps, slip it back. But great start to the session. Very happy. Show you the other side quickly. There's the other side. Immaculate. Absolutely nailed in the scissors, never coming off. Sweet, let's get some photos and put her back. Lovely and warm, just what you want at the end of a baking hot day. So today has been, as forecast, very, very hot, and luckily with the bivvy I've got with the vents and things and the breeze pushing, as you can see, lovely breeze, has kept me cool enough today, but it was baking hot. So if I was sat outside, it was only for 10-15 minutes at a time because I was burning. I just had to hide back in the bivvy. So as expected, nothing's happened throughout the day. I've barely even seen anything, maybe 1 or 2 fish in the pads, where they seem to love sitting in the pads in the day. But rods are resorted. The right hand rod redid again this morning, which is the one that done the bite last night. So as you saw, I jumped the gun with last night's capture, thinking it was bigger than it was, but still a personal best common, so very much over the moon with that. Maybe tonight I'll get that 40 pounder I thought I had last night, because there are some in here, so it could always happen, and maybe tonight. So that one is what I'm most confident on catching again tonight, because it's so discreet. There's no line in the water from the pads round, and there's only one other person over in 9. Someone else rocked up in 4 now, so there's so much of the lake the fish can swim around, not coming into contact with any line. Go up and down that road bank margin and all the trees and things, come across the baited patch, still no line until they get to my bait. So it really is an effective method, and that's what I'm most confident on. Trimmed a few branches off the tree that the line's going past when I went out of the boat early, just so I've got a complete direct line to the tree where I'm attaching the line to without getting caught with any kind of branches. Left hand rod, I went out in the boat earlier, I had a prod around to find a bit more of a specific spot, and it's not that clear off this island compared to on the other side. It's a bit sort of it feels like you're pushing through Kellogg's. That's a very weird way of putting it, but it's a bit gravelly, bit crunchy, not very nice, bit silty, but there's a few areas where there is a bit more clay, and you bring the pole back up and there's a bit of clay on it. So that's been dropped with the baiting spoon anyway, so it's not really getting hit in the water with any force. It's dropping down, should be landing perfectly on top of that regardless of what sort of lake bed makeup I'm fishing over. But I put quite a heavy amount of bait around that as well. And then the middle rod, again, while I was out in the boat, went along, found a harder patch between the pads and the island, similar to where I was fishing yesterday, only this time I've clipped up, got it exactly where I wanted it, and put quite a bit of bait around that as well. So I brought a few kilos with me this session, just because they seem to be feeding quite well, so I wanted to give them something to come across, get their heads down, and hopefully pick off a few. And the reason for putting more bait on these ones is because I want to bring the other rods into action, up my odds of getting of more fish on the bank. And hopefully now the sun's starting to set, it's been baking hot all day and nothing's happened as I expected, but now the sun's just gone behind the trees, already cooling down. I've got this nice breeze pushing into the swim, which is ideal, and I feel like my best chance is now onwards, really. At any time from now on I think I get a bite, but last night was about midnight, so I'm hoping that around that sort of time this rod will go off again. But if not, I'll see you in the morning anyway. But hopefully between now and then we'll be interrupted by another fish, and hopefully the 40 I thought I had last night. Well, it's another beautiful morning, but no more fish unfortunately, and it wasn't for lack of trying, and actually I had a take at 3 AM almost on the dot. Same rod again, the washing line rig went off, I was on it in a flash, and I'm pretty sure I felt a fish, but it went solid very quickly. It was caught on some branch or something, so held it solid for a long time, felt nothing kick, so I went slack, didn't take any line, so I wound down again, and whatever it was caught on came free, and I've just brought in a stick, which is rather frustrating. But checking the rig, the tubing wasn't blown back, because if it had been picked up, the lead was still there, so it hadn't discharged the lead, and it should have done, because I'm using a lead clip system with the tail rubber pushed on lightly. So I'm wondering whether a bird hit the line and knocked out the clip, and so I struck into nothing, and then it just caught on a branch at the bottom. That's my hunch, but I can't remember 100% whether I did feel a fish or not. I was in such a daze. But yeah, either way, no more fish last night. It's now 7:15 on the Friday morning, so I'm gonna bring the rods in and head on home, where I'm off camping for the night, and it's meant to be 28 degrees or more today, so it's going to be quite a hot one, and I don't think I would have coped sat in this swim for another day in that heat. So I hope you enjoyed this little video. It's rather cobbled together and rough around the edges, and not like my usual videos where I do a whole B-roll segments and stuff. This has been quite raw edit, so if you liked it, I hope you did. Let me know below what you think of this sort of content. I'm hoping to do more of these sort of updates every 4 or 5 sessions or so. When I've caught a few fish, I'll film each one and then do another recap of how it's going on here, rather than individual sessions. But I say it went alright. I wasn't going to film before I came. I did film and ended up catching a personal best and a 30-pound common, so I say that was quite successful. So cheers for watching. I'll see you again soon. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Facebook, mainly Instagram. That's where I do a lot of my updates, and I do a lot on the stories. So all of this session was documented on my Instagram story, which a lot of you do seem to get involved with, which is really nice to see. So yeah, if you don't follow me on there, please do. I'll see you again next time. Just watching. See you again next time, and cheers for watching, and I'll see you again next time. I'm stuck in a loop here. I don't know how to end. That'll do.